It has been a crazy busy summer for me, and I'm sure for most of you, with moves of our offices at both the university and the deacon office, and vacation travel, a new parish assignment, a new deacon class beginning, babysitting 3- and 5-year-old grandsons, and my mom going into a nursing home. It has been a whirlwind of activity for me and my family. Summer, which looked so long on Memorial Day, gone. That is why I'm so excited about our new homily series beginning today called Breathing Room, because, to be honest, I need it. And what is breathing room, you ask? Oh, I'm sorry. Just waiting for somebody to ask. Breathing room, you ask? Think of it as the space between our current pace and our limits. Breathing room is just having space to breathe. We are constantly bombarded with situations and activities that just fill in the space, leaving us little time for anything else. We've all seen the guy who worked so much that his marriage fell apart, or the couple who lived beyond their means and created deep debt, overscheduling kids who just don't have time to be kids, the college student who had way too much fun and flunked out. We all have our limits, right? And there are only so many hours in a day. We only have so much money that we can spend. And we only have so much emotional and mental energy to connect with our spouse or our friends or our children. And yes, at times, it's good to stretch ourselves and push our limits. It's fine for us to have a short period of time where we live at our limits, but if we live there too long, eventually we crash. We all need that critical breathing room. Think back to the times of your life that you enjoyed the most. You probably had breathing room. And when we have breathing room, we can take time to develop relationships. Lack of time kills them. When we are in a constant rush, we don't notice people that are sitting around us, their needs or their feelings. Breathing room gives us that time and a reason to listen to a friend that needs our help, or to simply hold the door open for someone, to let somebody go ahead of you in a line, or let them even pull out of the parking lot first after Mass. How often have we heard, "I'd like to help out, but I just don't have the time"? You may want to do something or support a cause, but your schedule, your budget, your weekends are already at the limit. When you don't leave breathing room, you are limited to what you must do instead of what should be done or what could be done. How much of your life is so crowded that you don't have breathing room? Life is better, and we are better people with breathing room. Here is the reality. No one accidentally finds breathing room. I can attest to this. I remember quite vividly one evening when I returned home from work, and I found my wife sobbing on the couch, and I couldn't understand why she should be crying. We had everything. We had fancy cars, we had a big house, we had successful businesses, and here she was crying that she hated our lives. Okay, so I was traveling around the country a lot back then, but I did get home for my daughter's baptism, didn't I? I was happy. She was miserable. I had squeezed out so much of our time together with all of my desires and with all of my dreams and my life goals, that I had squeezed out my spouse and my child. And that event was the wake-up call that my life needed balance and I needed time to breathe. That episode was the beginning of a transformation for me and for my family that led me to the Cursillo retreat I talked about last month, and a change of heart toward Christ and my faith. My rush to success could very well have cost me everything. We live in a culture that denies this need to breathe. Advertising is constantly bombarding us with ways to spend our money beyond our limits. The constant presence of technology and social media eats up our time. The urge to compete and succeed, the trap of comparing ourselves with our neighbors, the culture of kids' sports, the list goes on and on. If you want breathing room, you've got to go get it. And then you've got to carefully guard it. Over the last several months, you've heard Father David and me speak about discipleship, becoming lifelong learners, students, and followers of Jesus Christ requires breathing room. So, to help us get started, we're going to look at a very important discipline that Jesus describes in Luke's gospel that we just heard. At this point in the gospel story, Jesus is wildly popular, and we read, "Now great multitudes accompanied him." So, these crowds of people are following him, and he turns to them and he says, "If anyone come to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple." Wow. It's that kind of passage that's the reason people don't read the Bible. What does it even mean? Well, consider this. In the language and the culture of that day, the word hate is an expression that meant love less. So Jesus is simply saying to these people who are following him for really selfish, self-serving reasons, you can't be my follower unless I am your number one priority. That is, my friends, the way of discipleship. Jesus is saying, you've got to step it up. He goes on and then he says, whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Jesus is basically saying that eventually everyone who follows him will have to make some kind of sacrifice. And there is a cost to this discipleship. Now, here's the deal. There is a cost to everything. Everything you do and everything you don't do costs you something. It costs you effort to go to work. It costs you money to go to college. It costs you blood, sweat, and tears to raise your children. Your kids' travel soccer team costs you. Your sense of fashion costs you. And dare I say, even your undying enthusiasm for the Patriots and the Red Sox costs you. One of our problems or struggles when it comes to breathing room is that we forget that very important principle that everything has a cost. Ultimately, the cost is always in our relationship to God and to others. We lack breathing room because we fail to do what Jesus told us we should do. He goes on to say it like this: for which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the costs, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build, was not able to finish. So that, what it is saying is here is he's telling us to count the cost of our commitments. Over the course of this homily series, we are going to learn to count the costs. To begin, in the week ahead, Try and find the daily quiet time and think about these questions, and they are in your bulletin if you'd like to take one home. What are the real costs of our commitments? And where are those costs simply too high for you to support or sustain? And where can your life be better with breathing room?